Ciao ragazzi e bentornati, io sono Manu e questo è Italy Made Easy e oggi faccio il language tag. Today's video is not an educational video, it's actually a personal video that I'm going to do in English so that the majority of people can watch and understand this, because if I did this in Italian I would have to subtitle it, and unfortunately I won't have time to subtitle this one. So I might one day do the same video in Italian, so I will answer the same questions with roughly the same answers, so there would be a way to compare. Anyway, let me get straight into this. Actually, first, it's an old tag. I don't do tag. You know, my channel focuses on you and teaching you how to speak and improve your Italian. But you've been asking, you want to know personal stuff about me, so finally I have the time to record it. It's been on my list of videos to make for months. Finally, it's here. Oh, actually, I'm super busy with this channel already, but I thought I might want to start a new channel on my personal journey with languages. I thought, I don't know if anybody would find it interesting, but you know, I would be able to journal about my language learning experience and the languages that I'm learning, and maybe that could help somehow. I don't know. Anyway, let's start with the first question. What do you consider to be your native language? That's an easy one because I don't consider it. I don't have a lot of doubts about this one. It's Italian. I was born in Italy from Italian parents who've been Italian for a million generations, as far back as we can trace. And yeah, I grew up in Italy, so yes, definitely Italian is my language. But curiously enough, I'm in the very small percentage of Italians who were brought up with Italian as the first language, since 70% of Italians are actually raised in their dialect and then only learn Italian as a second language when they go to school. For me, it's my native language, 100% for sure. Like that's an easy one. What was your first language learning experience? Horrible. Okay, so we're talking about a million years ago. Okay, these days kids in primary school or even kindergarten, they start learning English, so it's different. But back in the day when I was in school, in the good old 80s, we didn't have that. So my first experience with a foreign language was English when I was 13 and I went to middle school, and I had to do English. It wasn't my choice. I didn't want to. I didn't like it. My teacher was horrible, an Italian who probably did, in hindsight, probably she didn't even know English. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't enjoy it at all. I was really bad. I got through the whole middle school, which is 3 years, got out of it not really knowing much apart from my name is Emanuele, you know, like with that accent. So yeah, I was really bad. It was really, really bad. But something interesting happened at the end of my middle school and before I went to high school. My parents, who are awesome parents, they sent me and my sister, who was 16 at the time, so I'm 13, she's 16, they sent us to the States. So I'm in the States, I'm 13, I don't speak English, so what do? I spend my time playing Nintendo. And my sister, she knows some English, she was already in high school, she was studying tourism, so English was important to her, and she made friends, she talked, she had a good time, and I was so jealous. So after that experience in the States, not really connecting with people, I got back to Italy and I had to choose my high school. And in Italy, in case you don't know, when you go to high school, you actually choose the type of high school that you are going. It's like university. You know, when you go to uni, you decide if you want to be a journalist or a scientist. Well, in Italy, we do that in high school. So at 14, I had to decide who did I want to be when I grew up. And I chose that I wanted to do something with languages because I loved the idea of meeting people from other cultures. I just didn't know how because I only spoke Italian. And so, yeah, that actually influenced my choice of becoming a linguist. So I spent 5 years in high school doing all sorts of languages, and then university. I might tell you in another answer, another question anyway. What languages have you studied and why did you study them? So English initially was, like I said, in middle school, I had to, no choice, I hated it. But then when I went to high school, I chose English as my main language along with French. So for 5 years of high school, I studied English and French really well, I have to say, because I was so passionate by then. I wanted to learn languages because I wanted to meet people from other cultures and I wanted to make friends from other cultures. in other countries. So I put all my effort into learning English and French. My high school was a very good high school, and our language programs were really, really good. So within a couple of years, we were actually not studying language anymore. We were discussing literature and history in French and in English. And so through the rest of high school, my exams, my assessment was not French grammar or French anything. It was sitting down with a teacher and discussing whatever, author, whatever book we had read, and philosophically discuss it. So I got to a very good level of both French and English. In third year of high school, so with 3 years to go, I chose Spanish as a third language. And again, we spent 1 year learning the grammar and the language. And then the second and third year, we spent again talking about literature and history and discussing, like the way we do in Italy. We like quite philosophical high school. So that's what I did. Then throughout my life, I've studied other languages. When I was in Melbourne, studying at Melbourne University, I did Catalan or Catalonian. What else did I do? I did Catalan. I remember nothing of it. What else did I do? Oh my God! How could I forget my university? Yes, my university in Italy. I went to a university for translators and interpreters, and this video is gonna be so long, but I want to talk about this. So I get to uni, and there was an entry exam which I passed with English. So that meant that English had to be my number one language at the university, and I had to pick a second language. Now, I was never really fond of French. I found it very hard to pronounce. I just couldn't be bothered continuing in French. Okay, so Spanish, I consider myself already fluent and pretty good. So I didn't really want to spend 5 years of my university life studying something that I was already pretty good at. I mean, English I had to. Also, I was going to get a degree, so it was going to be useful. But I didn't want to do Spanish because I already knew, so I had to pick a new language, because you have to do at least 2 languages. I did Spanish as a third language, but to pick my second language, I went to the first 2 classes of pretty much any language that was offered at my university. So I went to Chinese. Didn't have Japanese at the time. I went to Russian, German, Portuguese, Dutch, and actually I picked Dutch. So Dutch is another language that I did study for a month. And I got very scared because our professor was a nutcase. She flipped a couple of times, like screaming and throwing books. And I said to myself, do I really want to spend 5 years with this crazy woman? And my answer was no, so I left Dutch. So you see, I'm talking about obstacles and excuses that we all make. If you watch my other videos on why you may not be good at a language that you've been studying for a couple of years, watch that. And you understand what I'm talking about. So I wasn't going to do Dutch anymore. But another language that I went to the first lesson was Portuguese. Now, as a non-soccer lover, I had never heard Portuguese until that day. Maybe because, most Italians have heard Brazilian Portuguese or Portuguese from soccer players, but because I didn't care, never heard Portuguese. I went to this lecture, and this little man came out, and he spoke the strangest sounding language I had ever heard. I couldn't make up what it was. It sounds like Arabic, but with a Russian accent. And I thought, I want this language. I don't know what it is. I knew it was Portuguese, but so the reason I picked Portuguese was, it was like a lazy choice, but I'm so happy that I made that choice because I love Portuguese. But the reason I chose Portuguese back then was that I realized that it was going to be a very easy language to learn, being a Latin language and me already being fluent in Italian and Spanish. So I knew that it was going to be easy to learn. But 2 factors. Very few non-native people speak Portuguese as a foreign language because people often pick Spanish over Portuguese. So I thought not many people speak Portuguese as a foreign language, so I'll be one of the few people who do. And also the cool factor, because I thought to myself, I'm gonna speak Portuguese. Nobody's gonna be able to understand anything of what I'm saying. They'll think I'm the smartest kid on the block because I speak such a difficult language, but in reality, it's super simple. So that was the reason why I studied Portuguese, and I ended up loving it. Okay, obviously, and moving to Portugal and so on. Another language that I studied was Japanese, which I mentioned in my other videos on why we might be bad in a language. But yeah, Japanese. What other languages have I done? Oh, Auslan, the Australian Sign Language. This year I've done that. Still going. I mean, still more to go, obviously. What other languages have I studied? Oh, I've had a little bit of Indonesian just before I went to Indonesia. That's it. I don't know, maybe more. I don't know. I don't remember. So, how does your personality affect how you learn languages? Well, in two ways, I think. One way, it helps it immensely because I love meeting people. I love making new friends. So that was the main driver for me, being able to meet new people and make more friends. So my personality in that sense really, really helped my language learning. But on the other hand, it really hindered it because I'm a perfectionist, and like probably many of you, I have this thing that I'm not gonna use it until I'm good, which is not very wise. Okay, so let's all stop doing that. But yes. Do you prefer learning languages in a class or individually? Now, while I believe there is merit to a class setting, that's how I learned, my English, my French, my Spanish, my Portuguese. Obviously, it was in a classroom. I find, maybe it's because I am more of an advanced linguist by now, I find that I prefer the individual approach. I choose the material that I want to use. I choose the time when I want to learn. I can do a lot more because I'm by myself. And I find that the classroom setting really slows me down because, as you know, classrooms are designed for the lowest common denominator. So they are catering pretty much the worst students in the group so that everybody can stay at that level. And I just don't like that. I like to get things done very quickly, very, very fast. So I prefer the individual approach, really. What are your favorite language learning materials? So, as a person who already knows the language, my favorite tools are absolutely podcasts and YouTube videos. Not language podcasts and YouTube videos, but just stuff that was produced for the native speakers of that language. So I watch and listen to things that on topic that I enjoy, like cinema, personal development, food, vegan cuisine, fitness, that kind of stuff. But what else? As a learner of a new language, then I like products that are packaged in a way that is different from the traditional book that we would use at a university or whatever school. And that is, for example, for Japanese, I'm into a program called Yes Japan or Japan from Zero or Japanese from Zero. I think that product is really designed for people who are wanting to learn the current Japanese and the Japanese that people use in the streets at different levels, formal and more casual. But yes, I'm not a fan of books in that sense. I mean, I use books as reference. I have my grammar books that I can look at times if I need to check something, but I don't really spend a lot of time on grammar personally anyway. How much time do you spend actively learning per day and week? Now, well, it depends. If it's a new language, then I definitely spend around 6 or 7 hours a week. It's 1 hour a day, whether it's actively sitting down and looking at something or just listening to podcasts as I am walking. I listen to podcasts even when I'm not very good because I pick up the melody and the pronunciation of that language, so I still use it even though I probably don't understand much. If it's a language that I want to maintain, then it's probably a couple of hours a week, usually just listening to podcasts or watching YouTube videos, or or talking to friends or talking to myself. So yes, a lot of my time is spent on languages, but that's my lifestyle. That's what I like to do. Obviously, it may be different for you. What are your short and long-term language learning goals? So, at the moment, I am constantly maintaining my Portuguese and my Spanish, and I am revising my French because, like I said before, when I went to uni, I decided that I would never speak touch French again because at the time I didn't like it. I'm sorry, I just didn't like it. Now, 20 years later, I find that I would love to be able to speak French because I like all languages now. And so I am revising my French. I'm using a program called Learn French with Alexa. You can find her on YouTube, and she has a really good program that I have purchased. I'm all for buying a program that packages the information in a logical, sequential way. So yes, so I'm doing a lot of that. With French, I realized that I have immense knowledge of the language. My grammar is still pretty solid. My high-level French is really eloquent, but I lack completely the everyday vocabulary because I've never spoken French with a French person. I've met a lot of French people, but they all wanted to speak English with me, so French was never ever used, not even to introduce myself. So the next goal for this week is actually to jump on speaky.com and have my first conversation in French. Next year, I'm going to start relearning Japanese. So as of January, I will be spending 6 months on Japanese and see how far I get before I get to Japan in June. And for Auslan, the Australian Sign Language, unfortunately, the local community school for Auslan didn't offer higher level courses. So I've done all I could take here, and then I would have to go to Brisbane, and that is more than, like, it's a 3-hour back and forth journey that I'm not going to be able to do. So for now, Auslan is on pause, but hopefully I have a chance to pick it up, maybe with somebody who does use Auslan as their native, as their mother tongue. I've already answered this one. What is the next language you want to learn? Is Japanese. Now, I've already learned it, but yeah, I was never very good. So definitely Japanese is the next one that I want to become fluent at. So I know it will take 2 to 4 years before I would consider myself fluent, but I've got the time. I'm only 41, right? And then finally, what advice can you give to new language learners? Well, the advice that I would give to you is that just study a language, put the time in, and use it to communicate and to make friends and to expand your horizons and to broaden your perspective on life. Learn to be more accepting, learn to be more tolerant. I'm not saying that you're not, but this is something that languages will do because you stop seeing people as this foreign thing that you only hear on the media, and you actually go there, you make friends with them, you embrace the culture, they embrace you, and it's just an amazing journey. No matter what language you choose, no matter how much time you can spend. I don't know, what advice could I give? That's it. Just keep doing what you're doing. This was a much longer video than I expected. I'm gonna have to cut, but hopefully you found it interesting and I don't know, somehow inspiring. I don't know. Grazie mille, thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Ciao ciao. Pronto? Sì, sto registrando un video però. Sto davanti alla telecamera. Ci sentiamo dopo? Ok. Vabbè. Ok, ciao ciao. Papà.